Hello, this is Stefan again from schristoph.online. Today we'll talk about my latest blog post built on the short talk by Jeffrey Litt called Understanding is the New Bottleneck. When an agent writes code larger than anything you would write by hand and the tests pass, the writing was never the hard part. Keeping up with what got written is, and the same agent can help rebuild that understanding. The common story is that code review is the new bottleneck, with the human as a correctness checker. Litt's point is that this checking role is shrinking, because agents increasingly run their own verification loops. So the thumbs down part of the job is being automated away from under us. So you might ask, is this just a rebrand of code review? Is the bottleneck? No. And the distinction is the whole point. The durable reason to understand the code is not to catch the agent's mistakes. It is to participate. Rich structures in your head are what let you take the next creative leap. Lose them, and you can still ship for a while, but you stop being able to lead. This diagram splits the two paths. An agent writes code. One path leads to a shrinking verify step, thumbs up or down. The other leads to understand, then the next idea, then the next loop. The verifying role is shrinking as agents self-check. The understanding role is the part worth protecting. Skip it and you accumulate what Litt calls cognitive debt, the interest on which comes due later. Litt does not treat this as a discipline problem. He treats it as a tooling problem and borrows the tools from education. 3 stood out. First, explanations. Have the agent write a structured explainer for its change. Background first, intuition before details. Second, quizzes as a comprehension gate. Third, microworlds, small simulations you can inhabit. The first 2 are the ones you can adopt this week. Litt shipped his version as a skill called explain diff, which produces 4 sections as one self-contained HTML file: background, intuition, code, and quiz. That format ports cleanly to the agent I actually use, because the skill there is just a markdown file with a name, a description, and instructions. There is also a hooks primitive, so you could run the explainer automatically after every edit, turning a comprehension step you remember to do into one that just happens. I did not want to describe this in the abstract, so I ran it on a real change. A tiny renderer that swaps a flat top-down projection for an isometric one and adds a correct draw order. It is small but genuinely conceptual, the kind of change that looks trivial in the diff and is easy to approve without following the geometry. The skill produced one self-contained HTML page: background, intuition with a figure, a literate code walkthrough, and 5 questions. Here is the flow. A git diff goes into the skill, which produces a page with background, intuition, code, and quiz. And crucially, a pass, the quiz gate, sits between the page and shipping. A diff goes in, a teachable explainer plus a quiz comes out, and the quiz gates to ship. Now, a fair objection. Isn't a quiz the agent writes about its own code circular? It is a real caveat. The explainer is a learning aid, not an independent audit. Early versions even leaked the answer by always making the correct option the longest, which the community fixed by randomizing order. But for me, the quiz did its job as a gate. I would not have passed one of the questions on the first read, which is precisely the signal Litt is arguing for. The rule that comes packaged with all this is the part I would keep even if I dropped everything else. Don't ship a change you can't pass the quiz on. It reframes speed. AI coding lets you generate faster, but if the goal is to keep leading the system rather than just feeding it, the useful speed is the speed of your understanding, and a quiz is a cheap, honest measurement of that. So where does AWS fit? The explainer runs entirely on your machine against a local diff, which is all it needs. If you want a generational and managed infrastructure, Amazon Bedrock is a natural fit. Point the same skill at a Bedrock hosted model with model choice and structured output as ordinary features. The infrastructure is the easy part. The comprehension gate is the part worth building on. This is the primary source I built on, Jeffrey Litt's original explain diff skill, published as a gist. It is the 4-section structure, background, intuition, code, and quiz as a single self-contained HTML file, along with the community notes about randomizing the quiz answers. The reframe is entirely his. And here's my contribution on GitHub: the ported skill, the sample diff, and the generated HTML explainer. So you can run it yourself or point it at your own change. Clone it, define a real diff, and see whether you can pass the quiz on what your agent just wrote. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If so, you can reach out on LinkedIn directly or head to my blog at schristoph.online. Let's keep in touch. Take care.